So this is an issue which is worthwhile exploring, which is what are women required to learn, or what are women uh, perhaps not supposed to learn? And this is a long sugya, and I don't know how much we're going to get done tonight. This is from an article which you can see by Rabbi Eliyahu Soloveitchik, who's a rabbi in Eretz Yisrael, and it's called Noshim B'mai Zachyon. As Gemara says in Brachas, what or how do women get to Olam Haba? How do women get the schar of men learning Torah? By helping their husbands and their children to learn Torah. In other words, making sure that they go to the base medrash, they go to learn, waiting up for them to come back from learning. So that's that is the Gemara says. Even if women don't learn, they have reward as if they learn from helping their husbands, their children learn Torah. So that's the basis of the title of this article, Nashim B'Mazachyon. Now, he has here in the beginning of his article a interesting words of introduction. One of them from the Rambam, and the other from much more obscure Rishon, the Chani Yaakov Arkavalti. That's the Rambam says, Kol ish mikol ba'olam. If I make this actually a bit bigger, it might be helpful. Kol ish mikol ba'olam. Any person of any person in the world shall not baruch so whose spirit has moved them. Revinu madao, and his intellect has lead him to understand lavdio, to separate, Hashem, to stand before Hashem, l'shorasot, to serve him, l'avdo, and to worship him, l'deas Hashem, to know Hashem, l'halach yoshar, and that person goes straight. Moshe also Elokim, as God made him. You can't hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I could.
Okay, fine. Okay.
I could.
Okay, good. Okay. So and removes from over on his neck the burden of many different distractions, which people look for in this world. I raise this Kadosh Kodesh Kodashim, that person becomes holy, very holy, and Hashem is his portion, and Nachlaso and his inheritance, L'olam Ome Olamim, forever and ever. So the question is, obviously, the Rambam saying that men have this great possibility of leaving all of the matters of this world behind and just be involved in Torah. And Hashem will help them to be involved in this, if, of course, they're on the level, which is a very high level, to be able to forsake all matters of this world and just be dedicated to Torah. Okay, so now that's the Rambam. Our Kabbalati adds, "In chashka nafshecha v'Torah, in chashka nafshech." We're talking to women. Say, if your soul desires b'Torah, Torah, the pure Torah, al tanchi v'al yatzur geshem. Don't let anything materialistic stop you. Women who want to be devoted to this work of Hashem, Melechas Hashem, the melucha, the kingship of the work of Hashem, because they choose that which is good because it's good. They also go up in the mountain of Hashem. They will reside in his holy place. In the Shemo face, because they are outstanding women. And the sage of the generation have to give them honor, ladron, strengthen them, usadron, and arrange their learning. The to strengthen their hands, to fortify their arms, to gird their hips, and to belt their clothing. In other words, metaphor for saying that a woman also has this possibility of devoting herself to Torah and mitzvahs in a way which is above and beyond most other people. Okay, so the Rambam doesn't say anything specifically about women. The assumption about the Rambam is talking about only about men. But the Kabbalati says also women have this possibility. And of course, the question is then what women are supposed to do if they are supposed to be learning Torah, or they find their connection to Hashem in a different way. So the author here, Rabbi Soloveitchik, says, the question of the place of women in general in acquiring the Torah, the Torah acquisition, the Torah, avoda, and Hashem, serving Hashem, b'chachma, and knowledge, on Hoga, and in leadership. It's something which is on the public mind, the public discussion. It's a rabbi by many people who are good people who fear Hashem and really want to make a kiddush Hashem in the world. The question of women's education is a question which goes back for already a long time, over 100 years, and it's a question which bothers lots of people. To what extent women should or should not be educated? Absolutely, Barbara will say Atikamin. We will talk about an ancient topic, which already actually was argued 2,000 years ago by the Chacham and the Mishnah. Mishnah Tokef Yeshlo. There's a special importance to it in the ways in which we live in our day and age. Technology, which is rich in technology, was Minos Hamedo, and much information is available. And now, in our day and age, we devote the youth of also girls to learn to intellectual study, gam etzel habanos, even by girls, which therefore narrows the gap between girls and boys. So obviously, about 150 years ago, there was no question girls were not involved in intellectual activities, except in very rare occasion. There was very little schooling for girls, at least in Eastern Europe, where most of the Jews lived. So the question arose much more in the last 150 years: what girls should study, how much they should study, and what the emphasis should be on girls learning Torah. Okay. Now, Shoyazutu Nobio said this question is very, very fraught, which means it's very, very controversial. Bioser, especially, Mishtesi was for two reasons. Aleph, it's connected with the situation imachidushim of new ideas. We bought a medrash Haskalah from the base medrash of Haskalah. We'll explain in a minute. Which took the people participated into the deepest pit. In other words, the idea of women's education did not originate at least in Eastern Europe, in Poland, Lithuania, and all those places, but by the more observant Jews. It initiated by the people who were less observant. They were called maskilim. Maskilim translates into English, well, it's not a great translation, as intelligentsia. Intelligentsia means the people who see themselves as being intellectuals. So, and those people who saw themselves as intellectuals usually saw themselves as being opposed to the old ways of religion. So therefore, since the first drive for women's education in Torah came from circles which were not the most observant and are not most Torah true, so the question became how much of this drive for women to learn Torah is legitimate and how much is actually not legitimate because it's coming from a bad source. It's the first question. Base, there's another issue here, which is also difficult. It seems to be something which is at least seems to be a complaint or something which disturbs the existing order. In which the supreme task of a woman is conducting her household. And to give him an opportunity to her husband, to sit with the elders of the land and to learn Torah, without any disturbance. So the traditional role of women was that they sit at home and they mind the house and they run the household, while their men are free to go learn or whatever else they do outside the house. But even though that it might be that this is a very delicate question because it disturbed the pre-existing order, but still, we have to see what the Torah has to say about this, and we have to learn. We're not allowed to ignore the question of what women should be learning, just because when it came on the scene, it changed what were the norms, how society worked in the Jewish world to that point. There are many articles which have been written, hundreds. Many responses have been edited. Maybe many analyses have been done. And many books have been written by the sages of Torah, those who learn Torah and those who analyze Torah, to try and clarify this question. In the perspective of Chazal, we study this in Jewish history. Actually, it seems that no source has yet been undiscovered. In other words, it seems every source has already been dealt with. And that people have not left either great sources, major sources, minor sources, which have not been analyzed, and spread out clearly like a piece of clothing which is spread out in order to be cleaned and dried. But this Rabbi Soloveitchik, who writes this article, says that most of what I saw is gathering the sources in the Gemara, this Talmud, by story and historic sources, and explanation and commenting on it. And very little and that which the changes can possibly do to a woman, maybe a psychology from a psychological perspective. And how to confront the various different ramifications, the various different things, which will come into the structure of the house in general, and on her husband specifically, and that work has not yet been done. So Rabbi Soloveitchik it's a bit of a big task he's taking by himself, which I don't know if he's going to succeed or not. That's what we'll have to see. But he says, you know what? It's true, there are lots of sources in the Gemara, lots of sources in Halacha, lots of sources in history to discuss this in an abstract sense. Whether what women should learn, whether they should be learning, what they should learn, how they should learn. But most of these sources don't take into account what impact that's going to have on society. Is society going to be changed positively or negatively by women being exposed to advanced Torah learning? However, although the question about women in general, it emerges out of a will to keep girls and women connected to the way of Torah, because people, since women started thinking, we want them to think Torah thoughts. But by many women, the question of what they can learn comes out of a personal, spiritual crisis. There are a lot of women who say, you know what, it's enough that my husband learns. I don't have to learn myself, right? It's enough that my husband learns, my kids learn, and I'm happy that I get rewarded for learning through them. But there are other women who are not happy, who don't find that to be sufficient. They're not satisfied with that. They don't get their satisfaction life by waiting for their husbands to base a marriage to come home from learning. These women want to actually learn themselves. To satisfy their thirst, for their own personal growth. Nobody is there who is going to draw up waters of Torah and give them to drink. Because people are afraid to teach girls Torah Sheba'al Peh. And many people only allow girls to learn Torah Sheba'al only so they shouldn't leave the way of Torah living. So that's a separate issue. There are, although we can say, well, many or perhaps most women, they don't really care to learn Torah themselves, as long as they get the reward of their husbands or children learning Torah. There are other women who feel that they themselves want the growth of learning Torah, and certainly until relatively recently, there was nobody who was willing to teach them. So they're just frustrated and didn't know how they're going to get that personal growth. The essay which we're going to learn, it's going to show that there's a distinction in Chazal between women in general. Concerning them, there are limitations in the Torah they can learn. And individual women. Were never limited to satisfy their thirst, to connect to Hashem, the Mikra, in learning Tanakh, Mishnah, Talmud, the kindness of Paradise, and even learning Kabbalah. Paradise literally means an orchard, but it's a metaphor for Kabbalah, and the walking in the orchard is learning Kabbalah. This essay also indicates that the different approach which Chazal had to individuals as opposed to the masses, between comes to expression also supposed in other restrictions on learning. Al Kulana on all of them, this essay will contend that the fact that women are not obligated in certain mitzvahs, Mavel and Yisrael gives them an advantage. But also in their capacity to know Hashem and serve Him. So what Rabbi Soloveitchik is going to contend is that the fact that women don't have to learn Torah is an advantage for women, not a disadvantage for them. Okay? This essay doesn't come to say new stuff. But to summarize what we find in the words of our rabbis. To turn the torch towards those words, and thus to untie the cables of knowledge. In other words, those things which restrain women from Bekem Nashim, because he saw among women, righteous women in Israel, that they should be able to understand what their lives and their relationship to Torah is all about. And he ends with a main Kehiyotzo. Ask Hashem to help him out with this. Okay, so Aleph, that was our introduction. Why is there a tradition in Judaism did we refrain from teaching women Torah? Okay, I saw Torah, the basis for preventing women from for refraining from teaching Torah to women. It's a Mishnah and Sota. It says, if somebody teaches his daughter Torah, it's teaching her frivolity, which means something which is a woman or a girl will look at as being something not serious and something not worthy of significance and something unimportant. There are some people who translate it as if you're teaching them romance. In other words, you're teaching it's like reading a romantic novel for a woman to read Torah. And the same idea, the translation is different, the idea is the same. In other words, women are not capable of grasping intellectually with the sufficient seriousness what Torah is all about. Okay? That was the reason not to teach women Torah. With the Talmud Babli, Tikun Salashon, in the Gemara, they added, it says not that it is teaching her how to be frivolous. It's as if you're teaching her how to be frivolous. Okay, so we have to understand what Rabbi Elazar's issue is here. The concern that the Torah will be desecrated. Hashem, he's desecrating God's name. That Torah will be desecrated. Rabbi Elazar's statement has two aspects to it. One is the honor of Torah, because it's not appropriate to teach women Torah. Because women, by their nature, cannot grasp as an intellect short, abstract intellect. In other words, abstract thoughts. Kamoshu, as it is. And Kabbalah is called. In other words, women are not intellectual. That's the assumption. Kabbalah saying called the bar bebeit artzim megusham. They accept everything they receive in an earthy, in other words, coarse, mugusham, and materialistic way. Asher b'sofo shel davar miskasher etzlan ech shel tiplus. which somehow becomes frivolous. Now, this would not necessarily just be true about Torah. It would be true about teaching women algebra or physics or anything of profound abstract knowledge. The assumption back 2,000 some odd years ago is that women are incapable of such intellectual pursuits. It's something which they shouldn't be doing. Probably not good for them. So therefore, this somehow, any type of abstract knowledge would not be a good thing for women to learn.
Okay? Because they can't understand it, or because they don't think it's serious?
They won't take it seriously. Either they might understand it, but then they'll just make a joke out of it. Okay, that was regarded as the nature of women. Women can't think seriously. Okay? Leperu's there. According to this explanation, the Reza says be taken literally. And adding the word kilu, that's it says if it's teaching her to be frivolous, it's only lobo erorita sakesha ashir ben amlame tiflus. It only comes so a little bit calm down or take away the focus of the direct connection between the teacher and somebody teaching and making women frivolous. Really doesn't distract from the sharpness of the statement. It's an extremely sharp statement. This seems to be something which is connected, which is evident from the continuation of the Mishnah. Rabbi Yeshua which says, Rabbi Yeshua says, Rotza Isha B'kav Tiflus. It should be kav with a base, not kav with a vav. It's a typo. Mitisha kavin uprishus. A woman would rather have one measure of money, of wealth in this world, and have an emotional relationships with husband, with their friends, whatever the case may be, more than having lots and lots of money, 9 kav as opposed to 1 kav, and refraining from that emotional connection to other people and to this world. In other words, precious means to abstain from those kinds of frivolous, lighthearted, feminine, let's say, relationships. Women don't want to refrain from that. They want to have those kinds of relationships and those kinds of activities, and they much rather have that, even if they have to be poor in order to have that. That's more important than actual having wealth and riches in this world. Shalafib Shuto Huva, according to its background here, Osha Bishua Atzma Amaro, Rabbi Shua saying did say this, Kismak de Eliezer in order to support Rabbi Eliezer. Either Rabbi Shua said it independently and this brought to support Rabbi Eliezer, or he said in fact to support Rabbi Eliezer. Rachiach, and that from to prove from Masha Nashim Muchalas Chaynios, that women are prepared to live lives of poverty, with tsar and pain. In other words, as long as their husbands still are very connected to them and they feel connected, again, this focuses more on the romantic side of it, more connected to their husband, because this romantic connection or emotional connection is the most important thing in which women are interested. Okay. So far, so good. Everybody following? You don't like it. Any questions so far? No? Okay. The Parish has been before, but Rambam Hilchos Talmud Torah Perak Avalochigim. But the Rambam seems to follow this explanation. Tzibur Chachamim commanded Shelo Yelamed Adam as Bita Torah. A person should not teach his daughter Torah. Yeshua Nashim. Most women ain't that they don't have the proper intellect to learn and grasp the concepts. They motzin divrei Torah l'divrei Havai, and they take the word of Torah out of their context and use them just for their lighthearted chats and their lighthearted pursuits. Piani is daitan based on the poor intellects which they possess. For my meaning, hadashi yeshu of nashim, the intellect which most women have. Anihu is very poor. Torah, it's not built to absorb words of Torah as they are. And they see them with their light and frivolous approach to life. In Yanda Manin Sabi Ushami, something I said that was all from the Talmud Bavli. We have another Gemara called Yushami. On the continuation of the Mishnah in Saita, Shishanidu, where it says, Isha Purusha, a woman who separates herself from this world. They are people who destroy this world. Masbir Yisham explains, Isha Prusha was a woman who separates from this world. Zui Shiosheves Umaleves B'divrei Torah. This is a woman who sits and insults words of Torah. Vatomer Elai Tavo. And evidently they focus on the romantic parts of Torah, like when Leah says, when she gives Reuben, when Rachel takes the flowers from Reuben, and Leah says, Yaakov, you should come to me this night. And they were together that night. So that was the romantic parts of Torah. So it seems that women have this phenomenon. So it says Divrei Torah Minyani Tifus. They use words of Torah for matters of their lighthearted and frivolous and romantic agenda. They don't learn Torah intellectually. That's one reason that women should not learn. There's another one that they shouldn't learn how to trick other people, how to be cheating, how to be deceitful. There is another way of understanding words of Rabbi Lezer. That the learning Torah by women, it's going to cause them to do things which are defined as tiflus. They're not going to. They can learn things, abstract knowledge, but then when they come to use that abstract knowledge, they're going to use it in harmful ways, which are bad. Says, my time, Rabbi Lezer, what's the reason Rabbi Lezer says women should not learn Torah? The Chassidus says, Ani chachma, if I get wisdom, shachanti arma, then I also learn how to be deceitful, devious. In other words, chachma is kind of neutral. Person learn knowledge and use the knowledge for good things, so use it for bad things. I'm so afraid a woman's going to learn Torah and then learn how to trick people, make people think she's a very righteous person, even though she's not. Use it in order to cheat people because she learned new ways of how to think and how to understand things. Once wisdom enters a person, then also enters in a person also a twistedness, a way to misuse the things a person learns. Rashi explains to me from the Torah, she learns how to be deceitful, and she does things which are inappropriate. And she hides them because she's very smart and knows how to hide the inappropriate things she does. That's there. She does them in secret. Rashi that Rashi come to explain what the tiflus is. Shama Rabbi Lezer. That's explained by Shamu that the deceit, shetir chosh, she learn how to be sly. That's the right word. Is that she'll learn from Torah. Yisayel will help her lasok with the to be involved in inappropriate activities, but and hide them. Parents say nashim. Point is, you shouldn't teach shouldn't teach women Torah. Yisayel lasok with the it's going to make them do inappropriate things in secret, which is a pretty strong thing to say. Rashi, if not for Rashi's pshat, you could say Shabbat Nakat. Rabbi is going to say tiflus. He's not going to worry about some romantic misuse. Which will come as a result of teaching the Torah. But rather, Rabbi is not looking at the result, but the negative aspect. Sheyesh b'lim Torah bas. The Rabbi asks that there is in teaching Torah to a girl. So by drawing a parallel. L'limu tiflus labas, the same to teaching a romantic literature to a girl. Okay, the same teaching Torah to girls like teaching a romantic literature, but yours like a love story. Since Rabbi Lez himself doesn't explain what the problem is, what's negative teaching Torah to a girl. Rabbi Avoh says the negative thing is they're going to become sly. That you don't have to say that they're going to use it for znus and they're going to hide their inappropriate activities. Just the way they learn Torah is the way they learn anything else, which is as something which they makes them have knowledge, which is liberal knowledge is a dangerous thing, which then they can misuse as a result. Um, it's just telling us it's not good that women are too smart, because it's then they can be they're going to be too sly they're going to know too much and have all sorts of strategies with which they can do things which might be uncomfortable for the men. They shouldn't learn Torah, which is going to make them tricky and overly smart. Kippur says that, and like this, that this slyness, the Siba Shlo Rami is a Torah, is the reason not teach a girl Torah. Without, not that it's going to lead to some romantic or frivolous thing, but in and of itself. Okay, that's why I thought we were going to do Q&A. Well, nobody started with any questions, but we can do Q&A next time.
But Rabbi Hafer,
Yes.
can't men also take the bad lesson?
Yes, and obviously he's setting up what he's doing at the beginning here is setting up, how when you write an essay like this, you first take all the negatives, right? And then you address them one by one. So obviously none of this is going to be his conclusion. But he has to lay things on the line, right? And this is what the Gemara, this is what all the sorts which we have, which are negative in the Gemara, and then we have to deal with them and see if they really were going to remain negative in our day and age. You understand what he's doing?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not all this should not be taken to exclusion. Men will do the same thing, of course. Men do the same thing. The question is whether, men have to learn Torah anyway. So even that's Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai says, you know what? If I teach men Torah, tzaddikim yochubam poshim mikoshubam. Righteous people will use Torah properly. Criminals will use Torah improperly. But I don't have a choice, because men have obligations to learn Torah. So even though we run the risk of men doing the same things, they have to learn. We have to teach them. But maybe, since we don't have to teach women, maybe we shouldn't teach them. You see the difference?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so we shouldn't teach women Torah, that shouldn't do Torah, which is going to make them, devious. He says, that this kind of devious quality, is bas Torah, that's why he's not teaching girl Torah. It's not because they're going to use it in a frivolous way. It's just going to make them smart in a way which is not ladylike. And there are a lot of men, not me. I wanted to marry a woman who's smarter than me, but there's a lot of men who don't want to marry a woman who's smarter than them, or even a woman who's somewhat as smart as they are. So there are people who are very sensitive to that, and it's something which causes men extreme discomfort. So evidently this was regarded as a dangerous thing for women to have this knowledge. So it says in Mashal Sikla Zutra, which is one of the Midrashim. Mikan Amru, from here they learned. They said, "Amlam is bita Torah, Eina Malam the Elatiplus." Teaching women Torah is only teaching her tiplus, which is something which is inappropriate. Because it makes her even more very sly and shrewd. If he meant it's talking about that she's going to do inappropriate things and she was going to hide them like Rashi, it shouldn't say that it's going to give them too much sly and shrewd knowledge, because the knowledge in of itself is not the issue. The issue is what she's going to do as a result. Okay, so this is as you see, Beis is the Ofanim Brahim Mutar, but really Shalom Mutar. We're not up there yet. And there's still one shortcoming, which he's going to talk about before he turns the tables here. which is see how much we can get. We're only 3 minutes left. Shmiras Dibra Torah Kim Sirasan. The keeping Torah as is given to a person. Matrona shows her there's a certain noble lady. Asked her, there's name ma chait achas b'masa egel. Why did they sin? The Jews one sin with masa egel, and the amazing Bashalosh Misos, and they died with 3 different deaths. They died. Some people were killed by Moshe Rabbeinu. Some people died in a plague. Some people were killed by dying some sort of by Moshe Rabbeinu giving them water to drink, and then they died as a result. So Amar, he didn't answer. Rabbi Lezer didn't answer. He said, "A wisdom of women only is in knitting. Women are not smart. Women's wisdom should not be devoted to anything other than knitting, weaving, knitting, sewing." See, it says, says by the making of the Mishkan, all women who were wise, they knitted the stuff for the Mishkan. Amar Hurkanus Benos, Hurkanus' son said to Rabbi Lezer, because you didn't want to give her an answer about one Torah thing, evidently this woman got insulted, and she used to give Meiser to Hurkanus, son Rabbi Lezer, and she went off in a huff and a puff. He said, "Forget it, I'm not giving Meiser to Hurkanus anymore." So he was upset at his father. Amalei said, "He's sofu divrei Torah by Maser Renoshim. The words of Torah should be burnt. They should not be given to women." Yerushalmi Sota. Abita Charik, a sharp statement. He said, "Fu vayi matzuru, they should be burnt and not given over." Malami teaches us Tell me about what the Torah is going to do to women and why it's bad for women to learn Torah as women. But here, saying divrei Torah, it's more concerned about the Torah themselves. So, Noshim should first see your son. If women are partners in the giving of Torah, the word of Torah will be distorted. Masiyaz distorted and says, "When this session badly." Okay, now we're going to leave this for next one because left and a minute left. So I want to stress again that what Rabbi Soloveitchik is doing in this article is putting all the negatives on the table before he gets to the positives, right? And that's why we stopped learning this article now and didn't learn it again. So it would seem pretty bad, and it would be a very big mistake, a very grave error. So we have to continue this next week. I'm sorry that about the Q&A. We can also split it up next week and do part Q&A and part learning this if you want. Okay?
Yeah. But
okay. Yes.
For the thing that you just said, but that's only based on one person. Why did he say that no woman could learn? It's only based on one person that got upset.
Okay. So I won't have time to answer you. We'll have to address it next week. It's a good question. Okay. I'm just going to get a cough in the middle, so I'm not going to start answering now.
Okay.
Okay, guys. Have a good night. See you Tuesday.
Thank you.